You keep asking the same question in different disguises. Are they meant for me? But what you really mean is, why does my body feel like a battlefield whenever they're near? And that's the trap. Most people don't miss their person because fate is cruel. They miss them because familiar pain feels like home. The heart doesn't always choose what's good. It chooses what it recognizes. Intensity is not a sign. Obsession is not a sign. The butterflies are not sacred. Half the time, they're just your nervous system bracing for impact, because you learned early that love arrives with tension attached. So when someone makes you anxious, you call it destiny. When someone makes you doubt yourself, you call it chemistry. When someone disappears and returns, you call it a connection you can't explain. You can explain it. Your mind is trying to replay an old story until it finally ends differently, until you finally get to win. Jung would tell you that what you call love is often projection. You're not seeing the person, you're seeing your inner image painted over them like a mask. You're falling for your own unmet needs, wearing someone else's face. And the more unconscious the projection, the more magnetic it feels, because you're not chasing them. You're chasing the missing parts of yourself, the anima, the animus, the ideal partner in your psyche. These aren't cute concepts. They're forces that can hijack your perception. This is why meant for you is so hard to read. Real alignment doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like silence, like honesty, like being uncomfortably seen. And if you've built your identity around performing, pleasing, and surviving, that kind of truth feels dangerous. Your shadow, the parts of you you buried to be loved, doesn't want you to change. It wants you to repeat what's familiar, even if it destroys you slowly. It will call peace boring and stability wrong, just to keep you loyal to the old pain. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The signs you've been trained to look for are romantic, dramatic, cinematic. But the real signs are confrontational. They don't inflate your ego, they expose your patterns. They don't promise safety, they demand responsibility. They don't rescue you from loneliness, they introduce you to yourself, the you beneath the persona. So before you call it fate, ask a sharper question. Is this person awakening you or activating you? Is your longing pulling you toward growth or pulling you back into the same script with different actors? Because the right connection won't just feel good. It will feel like your old life can't survive it, without mercy, without apology. And that's where the real signs begin, right now. The first real sign isn't that they make you dizzy. It's that they make you honest. They don't enter your life like a drug. They enter like a light, and you suddenly notice the dust in the corners you've avoided for years. With most people, your persona holds. You can be charming, competent, mysterious, easy. You can curate yourself like an exhibit. But with the one who's meant for you, your performance stops working. You feel exposed, and strangely relieved too. Not because they attack you, but because they don't reward the mask. They don't clap for the version of you engineered for approval. They respond to what's real, and everything false in you starts feeling exhausting. That's why the connection can feel less dramatic. It's not a wildfire, it's steady heat. And if you've been addicted to emotional explosions, steady heat feels like nothing, until you realize it's the first time you're not burning yourself to stay warm. Jung would call this the collapse of projection. In the beginning, we all project. We meet someone, and the mind paints them with an inner image, the rescuer, the muse, the missing half. That's why the early stage feels electric. You're not only attracted to them, you're attracted to your own fantasy finally having a body. But if a person is truly meant for you, they won't let your fantasy run the relationship. They keep showing up as themselves. Reality replaces the inner movie, and the spell breaks. Watch how it shows up in small moments. In texts, they don't bait you with hot and cold games. They don't disappear to make you chase. They don't feed the uncertainty that keeps you hooked. They're consistent, which should feel safe. But if you're honest, it can feel unsettling. Your nervous system waits for the twist that never comes. You almost miss the chaos because chaos gave you a role. Calm doesn't need your tricks. In conflict, they don't punish you with silence meant to control. They don't twist your words so you end up apologizing for needs you barely voiced. They stay in the room, emotionally and psychologically. They can say, "That hurt," without trying to win. And that pressure tests you. Because now you can't hide behind being the good one. Now you have to face the parts of you that avoid, deflect, or vanish when intimacy gets too close. This is why toxic bonds feel like being chosen. They spike your dopamine. They make you earn scraps of affection like trophies. You feel special because you survived their unpredictability. But real bonds don't make you feel chosen. They make you feel revealed, seen without the costume, loved without the audition. And the terrifying part? If you've built your identity around being impressive, being revealed feels like exposure. So if the connection feels sober, don't dismiss it as boring. Ask a more dangerous question. Is this the first person who doesn't let you lie to yourself? Because the right one won't inflate your fantasy. They'll puncture it, gently, relentlessly, until all that's left is the truth you've been avoiding, and the version of you that can finally live in it. At first, your body tells the truth before your mind can argue with it. You're around them and something softens. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens. The tight knot you carry through most conversations loosens without permission. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's exactly what feels strange. You're not performing, you're not scanning for danger. You're simply there. For a moment, it's peace. Then the panic shows up. Not because they did something wrong, but because your system doesn't know what to do with safety. If you were raised on inconsistency, love that arrived with conditions, affection that could be withdrawn, attention that had to be earned, your nervous system learned a brutal equation. Calm is temporary, and the fall is coming. So when someone offers steady presence, your body interprets it as the quiet before the storm. Peace feels like the setup. You may even feel guilty, like you're waiting for a hidden price tag. Part of you wonders, what's the catch? Because you were trained to believe that love is negotiated, not given. So when someone stays kind after you're messy, your mind searches for the trick. It can't accept simplicity without suspicion. This is where people sabotage the very thing they prayed for. They confuse activation with attraction. They confuse anxiety with chemistry. They start hunting for problems, testing boundaries, provoking distance, just to recreate the familiar rhythm of uncertainty. Because uncertainty gives you control. If you expect abandonment, you can stay ready. If you expect disappointment, you can numb yourself first. Stability strips you of those defenses, and that exposure feels like danger. Jung would call this the shadow fighting for its life. The shadow isn't only bad traits, it's the entire survival identity you built to stay loved. The hyper-independence, the pleasing, the emotional armor, the compulsive self-editing. When a real connection appears, it threatens the old contract. It whispers, "You don't need to earn this anymore." And the shadow panics, because if you stop earning, you might have to feel. You might have to grieve. You might have to admit how long you lived in drought. So the body protests. You start overthinking their tone. You reread texts. You feel restless when everything is fine. You miss the spike of adrenaline that used to be your normal. Withdrawal symptoms, not destiny. Like any addiction, chaos convinces you it's love because it keeps you focused, occupied, hooked. Calm feels empty at first because you're used to being busy surviving. Here's the warning. If you chase intensity as proof, you might abandon the real thing for the familiar thing. You might trade a healthy bond for a wound that knows your name. And you'll call it fate because it feels louder. But loud isn't sacred. Loud is often just your trauma asking for its favorite drug. When your nervous system calms and then panics, don't immediately run. Sit inside that contradiction long enough to see it clearly. The panic isn't always a signal to escape. Sometimes it's a signal that you're finally detoxing from a life built on uncertainty, and your true self is about to step forward without armor. The next sign is the one most people reject because it doesn't flatter you. The right person will not just soothe you, they will disturb you. Not in the chaotic way that leaves you begging for crumbs, but in the clean way that exposes who you become when love is real. They don't trigger your ego, the part of you that wants to be admired. They trigger your shadow, the part of you you swear isn't there. You'll see it in moments that feel embarrassingly human. Jealousy you didn't know you had, a need to control their closeness, defensiveness when they point out something small and true. The urge to withdraw when intimacy gets too steady. You thought you were mature, you thought you were above it. And then they show up, and suddenly you're meeting the version of yourself you've been denying. Here's the key. They didn't create these things. They revealed them. That's why it feels personal. That's why you want to blame them. Because it's easier to call them toxic than to admit you've been carrying a shadow that only appears when the stakes are high. Jung's term for the goal here is individuation, the slow, painful integration of everything you are, not the social persona, not the curated identity, the whole self. And a relationship that's meant for you becomes one of the most ruthless mirrors for that process, because you can't spiritually evolve while still pretending you're flawless. You can't merge with truth while hiding your darkness behind good intentions. But listen carefully, because this is where people get confused. Shadow-triggering growth is not the same as abusive chaos. A meant-for-you connection will challenge you, yes, but it will not destroy your sense of reality. It won't leave you constantly confused, constantly apologizing for basic needs, constantly walking on eggshells. It won't punish you for being human. Growth pain feels like friction toward clarity. You argue, but you understand each other more afterward. You feel exposed, but also safer. Your pride gets bruised, but your soul feels cleaner. Abuse feels like fog, like a maze where the rules keep changing, like you're always the villain and they're always the victim, like your boundaries make them angry and your emotions get used against you. That's not shadow work, that's erosion. So, here's the brutal test. After conflict, do you feel pulled toward truth or trapped in confusion? Do you feel invited to take responsibility or coerced into submission? Do you feel challenged to grow or manipulated to shrink? The right person confronts you without humiliating you. They can say, "This is how that affected me," without turning it into a war. They hold you accountable, but they don't weaponize your flaws. And you'll notice something else. They make honesty expensive, not because they demand perfection, but because you can no longer hide behind your favorite coping strategies. You can't charm your way out. You can't ghost your way out. You can't play the victim to escape accountability. Their presence forces a choice, comfort or becoming. Most people choose comfort. They'd rather keep their masks and call it peace. But love that's meant for you is not always gentle. Sometimes it's sacred because it refuses to let you stay asleep. It makes you face the shadow, not to shame you, but to free you, so you can love without lies, and finally, meet yourself without flinching. When it's real, it doesn't stay contained inside the relationship. It spills outward. It rearranges your life like a force of gravity you didn't consent to. You start noticing that your old routines don't fit anymore. The conversations you used to tolerate feel thinner. The places you used to hide feel smaller. Even your future plans begin to sound like they were written for someone else. This is the part people romanticize and misunderstand. They want it to be mystical. They want the universe to send obvious signals, angel numbers, perfect songs at perfect moments, cinematic coincidences that prove the story is destined. Jung did speak about synchronicity, yes, meaningful coincidences that seem to link inner life and outer events without clear cause. But here's the danger. If you're hungry for certainty, you'll turn coincidence into confirmation and call it wisdom. That's not synchronicity, that's obsession in a spiritual costume. Real synchronicity isn't a billboard that screams, "This is your person." It's subtler. It's the strange alignment between what's happening inside you and what keeps appearing outside you. Not to convince you, but to confront you. A book falls into your hands that names the pattern you've been living. A conversation hits like a mirror. A moment repeats until you finally understand what it's trying to teach. The point isn't magic, the point is meaning. But the truest sign isn't outside, it's inside. When it's meant, your ability to lie to yourself starts collapsing. You can't pretend you're fulfilled in that job that drains you. You can't laugh along with friends who bond through gossip and bitterness. You can't keep numbing yourself with distractions that once worked, scrolling, flirtation, overwork, addictions dressed as self-care. Those habits were never just habits. They were coping mechanisms for a life that didn't feel true. And now, truth is standing in the room with you. Your old escapes stop tasting sweet. This is why your social world can shift. Some people will feel you changing before you say a word. They'll call it distance. They'll call it different. They'll say you've become cold or arrogant or too serious. What they really mean is you're no longer available for the role you used to play. The agreeable one, the self-sacrificing one, the one who made everyone comfortable by shrinking. When you stop shrinking, you disturb the entire emotional economy around you. And you'll feel it too. Old friendships can start to feel like wearing a costume you've outgrown. Old ambitions start to look like someone else's checklist. You may even grieve the person you used to be, because they kept you safe. But safety isn't the same as alignment. Safety can be a cage with soft walls. Here's the paradox. When life rearranges itself, it can feel like loss even when it's liberation. You might lose access to what was familiar. You might lose people who only liked the version of you that was manageable. You might lose the old fantasies, the old timelines, the old identity built around being chosen, tolerated, or needed. But that's the sign. Not that the universe approves, but that your soul refuses to keep living in a lie. Because when the connection is real, the truth becomes louder than your comfort. And whatever isn't aligned will start to fall away, not as punishment, but as proof that you're finally becoming someone who can't be owned by the old life anymore. The final sign is the one that ends the fantasy forever. If they're meant for you, they will cost you your old self. Not in the melodramatic way people post about online, but in the quiet, irreversible way real transformation happens. Because meant for you is not a reward, it's an initiation. It's life tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you can't keep pretending anymore. Most people want love to feel like rescue. like arrival, like finally being chosen after a lifetime of almosts. But Jung would tell you the deeper truth. The right person doesn't complete you. They activate the process of becoming whole. And wholeness has a price. It demands that you sacrifice the parts of you that were built for survival, not truth. You'll feel it when you realize you can't keep playing roles. You can't be the agreeable version of yourself just to avoid conflict. You can't be the cool, detached version just to avoid vulnerability. You can't be the endlessly giving version to keep someone from leaving. Those strategies worked in your first life, the life where you chased approval and called it love. But the second life asks for something else. It asks for integrity, and integrity will strip you. That's why this connection can feel terrifying. Not because they're wrong for you, but because being with them demands responsibility. You can't blame fate anymore. You can't blame timing. You can't blame your past. You have to choose. And choosing means letting something die. The ego that needs to be admired, the identity that needs to be needed, the habit of shrinking so you don't lose people. This is the sacrifice nobody romanticizes, because it doesn't look beautiful. It looks like grief. It looks like saying no to the version of you that once kept you safe. And yes, you may lose things. You may lose friends who only loved your mask. You may lose relationships that were built on your people-pleasing. You may lose the comforting chaos you mistook for passion. You may even lose time, because you'll see, with brutal clarity, how much of your life you spent rehearsing instead of living. That's the real mortality pressure. How long will you keep practicing love like it's a performance you're never ready to give? This is why the question, "Are they meant for me?" is too small. A better question is, what in me is resisting the truth? Because the resistance will show itself. It will show up as nitpicking, as sudden coldness, as a craving for drama, as running back to familiar pain, as calling peace boring and depth too much. That's not intuition. That's fear fighting for your old identity. So here's the closing truth, and it's not gentle. If you need certainty before you choose, you'll never choose. Life doesn't give guarantees. It gives invitations. And the real sign is not that everything feels perfect. It's that you can't go back to sleep after meeting what's real. If this hit you, don't just nod and scroll. Leave a mark. Comment, "I choose truth over fantasy." And then ask yourself, honestly, what are you still clinging to that keeps you from becoming the person who can receive the love you say you want?